Okay, Alhamdulillah. You can proceed now.
Okay, so let me repeat myself. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya al mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, let us begin the ceremony with the recitation of the al Furqan al-Fatiha. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Umaira binti Zulhasimi and I will be the MC for today's program. Inshallah, firstly, we would like to thank the University of Augsburg in Germany, especially Prof. Dr. Elizabeth Norath, the Chair of Protestant Theology of the Religious Education at the University of Augsburg, as the speaker for today's webinar. We are also honored to have today with us Assistant Prof. Dr. Majda bin Alias, Head of the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion and Philosophy, Dr. Fatma Sehu, Associate Prof. At the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion and Philosophy as the moderator for today's webinar, as well as Sister Aisha, the chairperson of UDCY. It is an honor for me to welcome all the participants from Malaysia and abroad who are attending this talk. Indeed, this is the first time that the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion and Philosophy is holding a webinar in collaboration with the University of Augsburg, Germany, and the UDCY RKUD. Dear respected brothers and sisters, now I would like to invite Assistant Prophet Majda bin Alias, Head of Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion and Philosophy, to give his welcoming remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you so much, Sister Humaira, and also Associate Professor Dr. Fatimir Shehu, the UDCY in general, all the UDCYs, I think most of them are here, and particularly special thank to Professor Elizabeth Norath. So we are not going to Germany. We are listening from her, from Germany, from the religious chair of Protestant Theology, Religious Education, University of Augsburg, Germany. Just, Professor, we would like to just introduce a little bit of our department. The name of this department is the Department of Usuluddin, Comparative Religion and Philosophy. So we have several focuses under one umbrella, but they are all interrelated. And particularly, which is very much linked to, I think, your area. I think most of them are are related to your area. But our students here, they are very much interested actually in comparative religion part. And particularly because you are from that area and you are also in the Protestant, isn't it? Protestant religious expert. So we would like to listen from you. Okay, now. And also, our students here, we teach Usuluddin. This is the Islamic ground for the belief and also the Islamic thought. And also, because we teach also what other religions, what other religions teach and how Islam looks into it. So for that purpose, it is very, I think, timely, and it is very much related to listen from you. Okay, now, your talk, I think it is going to be very valuable, inshallah. And I thank you all the students who are participating in this webinar. I think good number already, mashallah. Okay, now, inshallah. Just I would like to know, Prof. Elizabeth, what time is it in Germany now? We are 3 o'clock here.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So we are not waking you up.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
I'm an early bird.
Okay. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Majdan, for the inspiring remarks. Without further ado, I would also like to invite Sister Aisha, chairperson of UDCY, to give her speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to everyone. And first of all, I would like to warmly welcome our distinguished speaker, Prof. Dr. Elizabeth Naura, and also to our beloved HOD, Head of Department, Assistant Professor Dr. Majdan bin Alias, and also our moderator for today, Associate Professor Dr. Fatimah Shehu. And thank you so much to our MC for today, Sister Humaira, and our fellow participants. So my name is Aisha Aini binti Anis Fahmi, and I am the chairperson of UDCY, which in the long form we call it Usuluddin and Comparative Religion Society. So if I can introduce a bit about UDCY is representative student representative body, which we are the bridge for the student and between the student and the department. So our goal is to cultivate holistic personality to our RKD students. So we will do programs like talk and also interview dialogue for the student, so they can cultivate the what we can cultivate holistic skills and so on. So I hope this is one of the programs like this virtual seminar with Prof. Elizabeth Naura. It would be a very good opportunity for the student to take skills, to enhance their skills, and to get understanding in this ground of work. And for the topic, transformative learning in times of crisis, compassion as a peace, we might see that this topic is really relevant for the students, and especially to my fellow friends. If there is any RKUD student here, I hope we could take this opportunity and to engage with this kind of initiative and to cultivate our skills and so on, and to be equipped with the understanding to respond to this modern time crisis. Okay. And after all, the youth is the future of the world, inshallah. So I think we all can try our best to be better and to engage in this kind of talk, in this kind of seminar. And I wish everyone could enjoy this meaningful and beneficial seminar, inshallah. So I think that's all from me. Thank you so much. Actually, I had prepared some presentation slide, but I afraid it will take a long time. So I think I would end here. So thank you so much.
If you'd like just to share, Aisha, you can share with us to go through that. We can record that. I think it's better. Do you have any?
Yeah, I have the slide.
Okay, just to share, then we can go through. I think this is better.
Okay, I will share the slide a bit. Um, where can I? Okay, yeah, I try it first. Yeah. Or maybe I can share the file, then I will, because the link, copy link. Okay, I tried. I am sharing. Can everyone see the slide?
Yes, we can see that now. You can move, go down and up. Aisha, this is empty. We don't see anything, Sister Aisha.
Yeah. Wait, yeah. Mm, I apologize for the inconvenience. Mm,
Are you able to share the file with her? I mean the slides, or this is the link?
this is the link.
You cannot share the slides. You just go to the.
I will try to share the slides, but it will take some time. Maybe we can start first.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. How to stop sharing? Okay. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Sister Aisha. Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, the Almighty God, because with His abundance and grace, we can gather together on this beautiful and blessed evening and morning to have a webinar titled Transformative Learning in Times of Crisis, Compassion as a Peace Education Principle. Now, I would like to invite Associate Prof. Dr. Fatmi Sehu to moderate today's event. Welcome, Doctor. The floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you very much, Sister Humaira, the MC for our today's program. Yes, indeed, we are very honored to be with all of you today here. And first of all, I would like to thank our head of department, Assistant Professor Dr. Majdan Alias, for being with us here today. As well as we have Associate Professor Dr. Ainul Azmin, since this is a part of the Erasmus Plus project. So we collaborate together and we made this a program related to our department as well, that as it was mentioned by the head of department, it is in line with the teaching scope of our department, Alhamdulillah. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to, that is the most important part that we are waiting for. So we have our dear professor, Dr. Elizabeth Nauret, with us today. As usual, before we invite her to share with us her talk, let me just briefly, in a few lines, to mention who is Prof. Elizabeth. Now that she holds the chair of Protestant Theology, Religious Education at the University of Augsburg, Germany, and she founded the Peace Education Center for Interreligious Education with the study for Certificate of Interfaith Mediation. As well as Prof. Nauret, she is current research in the role of religious traditions in addressing climate crisis, with a particular focus on the potential of religious actors to advance climate justice. And this is a very relevant topic that everyone is talking about. And since November 2023, Prof. Elizabeth, she is leading the project of Erasmus that is titled Facing Global Challenges, Environmental and Peace Education in Interreligious Cooperation for Teacher Training. And that is how our university is a part of this project as well, among 5 other universities all over the world. So without any further delay, I would like to invite Prof. Elizabeth. Prof. Elizabeth, we have 45 minutes for your talk. Then we have the question and answer session at the end. Thank you very much, Prof. You are welcome.
Thank you so much, dear Fatmir. And I want to thank you for your invitation. I'm feeling very honored to be invited, and I'm also feeling very honored to cooperate with your university and especially with my dear colleagues Fatmir and Ainul.
Welcome, Prof. Welcome.
Yes, because this is a session of comparative theology. I want to add that I'm a Lutheran Protestant theologian. I'm also ordained as a Lutheran Protestant priest. So today I want to share you my lecture. I want to share the screen. One moment, please. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Everything is working?
Yes, we can see, Prof. Yeah, please.
Okay, so the topic is Transformative Learning in Times of Crisis, Compassion as a Peace Education Principle. To illustrate the topic, I shall begin with a poem. It's a poem by the Protestant theologian Dorothee Sölle. She is known for her socially critical and also political theology. The poem is called The Cello. He took the train home from orchestra rehearsal. He was tired. He didn't think anything of it when they got in, when they started to become rowdy. Only when it became emptier and they became more intrusive did he start to feel afraid. When they hit him, there were only a few people left on the train. He didn't fight back. Then they realized where it hurt and kicked the instrument case until it cracked. What did the cello do to you? What did the pale boy do to you? And what did we not do to them? Dorothy Sonne's poem is so impressive because it's written in such a lucidly, simply style. The image arises before our inner eye, an image of injustice. Someone is attacked for no reason, and through no fault of his own, his musical instrument is destroyed in order to hurt him. And at the end, there are three rhetorical questions. What did the cello do to you? What did the pale boy do to you? And what did we not do to them? The emphasis in the negation of the last question says it all. We, whoever that may be, have not done something to the perpetrators of violence to prevent them from becoming what they have become. Is it possible to find a solution to the problem by changing one's perspective? So my second point is called a change of perspective as a key to transformative learning. Here you can see the so-called jump picture. I use it for illustrating perspective changing. A change in perspective can provide unexpected impetus for a change in previous coping strategies. I would like to illustrate this briefly with an example from health psychology. When we feel ill or feel unwell, we ask ourselves intensively why and change our behavior, usually in the short term, so that we feel better again. Why asks salutogenesis, that is the opposite of our pathogenic questioning. Why ask salutogenesis? Do we not ask what factors lead to people staying healthy and try to maintain or develop these very conditions? That is a change of perspective, you understand? To put it bluntly, those who can empathize emotionally with their counterpart are less likely to lash out. Assuming that the propensity for violence and the lack of empathy are related, promoting the development of compassion is an approach that shifts the focus from treating symptoms to prevention. In other words, the damage does not have to be done before a catalog of violence prevention measures is put into action. Rather, educational effectiveness can be improved by taking a closer look at the factors that protect against the development of violent tendencies. Research into disadvantage shows that there appear to be factors that make severely disadvantaged children and young people resilient. In other words, there seems to be a way to break this vicious circle mentioned earlier. In my opinion, the development of compassion is a crucial building block for promoting resilience. That is not becoming prone to violence despite significant social disadvantage. So we need the courage to shift our perspective, not only to learn new behaviors, but also to potentially unlearn or change our attitudes and mindsets. Why is this necessary? My third point, the challenges of transformative learning. Today, we speak of transformative learning because our understanding of education has fundamentally expanded. Learning is transformative in particular because we live in an era marked by profound changes. Transformative learning processes are triggered, in particular by experiences of crisis. According to Jack Mezirow, such processes often arise from so-called disorienting dilemmas, situations in which previous frameworks of reference are no longer viable. In this respect, crises act as catalysts for learning processes by disrupting established interpretations of the self and the world and creating a need for reassessment. The present is characterized by a convergence of multiple crises, increasingly described as a polycrisis or megacrisis. Climate change, geopolitical conflicts, migration, and social inequality overlap in a way that not only challenges political and economic systems, but also fundamentally alters the conditions for education. So ecological, political, social challenges demand not only new knowledge, but a shift in thinking. It is no longer enough to know facts about climate change or global conflicts. What matters is how these insights change one's own thinking, feeling, and acting. Transformative learning processes therefore aim at a shift in perspectives, the development of judgment, and the willingness to critically reflect on one's own convictions. A characteristic feature of such learning is that it is often triggered by disorientation. People find themselves in situations that shake their previous certainties, whether through encounters with other worldviews, experiences of crisis, or moral conflicts. And I think in Europe, that is really the situation now. Ideally, these disorientations lead not to defensiveness, but to reflection. Through engagement with others and in dialogue, previous interpretations are examined, expanded, or even fundamentally altered. The end result is not simply more knowledge, but a changed understanding of oneself and the world. Education faces the task not merely of imparting knowledge, but of empowering individuals to maintain their bearings in situations of profound uncertainty and to act responsibly. In this context, the context of transformative learning takes on new relevance as it describes learning processes that go beyond mere adaptation and aim at a profound transformation of interpretative frameworks. However, particularly in times of polycrisis, it becomes apparent that cognitive disorientation alone is insufficient to trigger sustainable transformations. Learning is no longer seen merely as the acquisition of knowledge, but as a process that changes the way people interpret the world and situate themselves within it. Rather, a mediating force is required that combines cognitive insight, emotional resonance, and ethical orientation. Yet in many approaches to transformative learning, the role of emotions remains underexplored. This is where the concept of compassion comes into play. Learning becomes transformative where it touches one's own attitude and leads to a new relationship with the world. It is precisely in educational fields such as religious education, peace education, or education for sustainable development that the concept of transformative learning has therefore become established. Here the focus is always on questions of meaning, responsibility, and orientation. Education aims not only to impart skills, but to enable people to take a stand, religiously and ethically. In summary, it can be said that we speak of transformative learning today because education is understood as a process that goes beyond the imparting of knowledge. It is about the transformation of interpretative frameworks, the development of a reflective self-understanding, and the ability to act responsibly in a complex world. Transformative learning is thus underpinned by an understanding of education that takes the human being seriously in their entirety as a thinking, feeling, and acting subject. In this respect, we can describe compassion as a principle of peace, education for transformative learning, and now I would like to elaborate this. The following research on compassion is related on my habilitation thesis. It's in German. It's about Mitgefühl. Mitgefühl is not so easy to translate. Compassion is not really the same, but I try to call it compassion, of course. This work, my habilitation, was published very quickly in the third edition. I'm a bit proud of that and honored with several awards. So the next topic is compassion, Mitgefühl. Terminological clarifications. What is compassion? Here you can see these horrified faces. What are these people witnessing? What is affecting them so deeply? The faces in this photo, taken from an exhibition in Berlin on the subject of pain, express non-verbally how deeply emotions are involved when witnessing an emergency situation. What exactly is compassion? Based on Saskia Wendel's subject theory, empathy can be described as identity in lasting difference. That is very important for my understanding. The uniqueness of the other is recognized, yet the comparability of both subjects is made possible. Quotation for Saskia Wendel, rather the identity of the self is constituted in that it becomes the image of the other, in which the other in turn can realize his or her identity. And conversely, the other becomes my image as another self in which I can discover myself. Accordingly, I can empathize with him, but I can never be completely identical with him or her. Quote end. In this respect, a possible asymmetry in the relationship is prevented. For by fundamentally preserving the autonomy of the other, both the ego's claim to dominion over the other and the primacy of the other are fundamentally contradicted. So when we talk about compassion, we have an anti-hierarchical basis. It means no top-down thinking and no appropriation thinking as in pity. That is another term. It's not pity. Compassion is not pity. The ability to form relationships based on compassionate skills does not therefore have the meaning of a symbiotic oneness, as the boundaries of the self remain intact. Ultimately, compassion can only be understood as complementary. It means both identity and difference, both closeness and distance. To give an example, your tooth hurts you, and your pain hurts me. Compassion therefore means I do not have your pain. I am not you, so I remain myself, and yet I identify with you on an emotional level. It is very important to make this distinction that is not usually made in colloquial language. Compassion and pity are to be distinguished. Historically, pity has increasingly taken on a negative pejorative connotation, is viewed critically as a term because pity usually has hierarchical connotations. You poor thing, I feel so sorry for you. According to the research of the Catholic theologian Kofler, we have a long and from a philosophical point of view difficult history with the concept of pity, which in most horrific reversal led to the German Nazis' euthanasia program killing out of pity. So when I talk about compassion, I discover a broad conceptual spectrum that I see as a very promising. This is because the term compassion refers not only to sympathy in an emergency situation, but also, and that is interesting, to the perspective of sharing joy or hope and even celebrating together. Incidentally, this offers us perspective that is interesting for interreligious learning processes. Not only in everyday and pragmatic terms, mutual invitations and participation in religious festivals are often the first steps towards encounter and dialogue. Furthermore, the theme of compassion also connects us with other religions as a central theological and ethical concept. From a religious studies perspective, compassion can be verified as a basic principle of charity. In Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and other religions, we find the extremely central concept of compassion. One example, I tried to say something for Islam, you can change it later. In Islam, the concept of rahmah implies a compassion for human beings that is given to them in the womb and can be expected from God at any time, thus determining the relationship between God and human and to be further developed in the community among human beings. The covenant between God and human is considered sacred and inviolable. It is a great sin to doubt God's mercy, as this would mean doubting God himself, since he is committed to mercy. However, we do not find the term compassion in German Christian theological dictionaries. In my postdoctoral thesis, specifically biblical theological studies, but I was able to show that the Christian theology of compassion is based on the fact that this term corresponds to the understanding of German Barmherzigkeit, English mercy. The criterion of Christian ethics is a biblically based concept of compassion that originates from God's compassion and thus constitutes all ethics. The Bible clearly speaks in its stories of the experience of God as a God who sympathizes with human beings. In both testaments, we see a God who is passionate, certainly in an emotional sense, who struggles for human beings, who does not simply turn away in horror, but who repeatedly shows mercy with patience and great kindness, in other words, with feeling. According to Christian understanding, the beginning of all ethics lies in this relationship established by God, which is characterized by grace, mercy, and which, in my opinion, can be made more contemporary with the concept of compassion, especially since it offers forward-looking points of contact for interdisciplinary dialogue. In Germany, it is more easy to speak about compassion, to come into interdisciplinary dialogue with sociology, psychology, and others. Compassion is thus a theologically based concept that can be linked, for example, to the psychology of emotions. And that is very interesting for the next point. This is precisely what I have outlined in my postdoctoral thesis for the practical theological field of action of religious education. And it was very interesting to have a look to the developmental psychological insights on that compassion. Are there any findings in emotional psychology about how compassion arises or develops? Can compassion be learned or unlearned? Can the capacity for compassion atrophy? Does it require educational stimuli? Emotional psychology studies show that children perform prosocial actions even in early childhood. Although cognitive structures, such as the ability to take on perspectives, are not yet developed. Children are only able to mentally put themselves in someone else's situation at the age from 8 till 9. In contrast, long-term research on the development of compassion has shown that affective components in particular act as preconditions for early empathy and prosociality. I can be concluded from this that ethical education measures that primarily address the cognitive sphere are actually too late and therefore too short-sighted. In addition, as we all know, a one-sided cognitive approach to empathy carries it with the risk of repression and distancing through rationalization. Studies on adult helping behavior have shown that the cognitive understanding of an emergency situation increases. There is a tendency to rationally suppress compassionate impulses, for example, by discussing the question of guilt in order to excuse failure to help. In contrast, the emotional dimension of empathizing with the situation of others is more fundamental and effective. What is striking here is that, according to the Augsburg studies on the development psychology of compassion, this is something we are born with. A toddler cries when it hears another child crying. A 2-year-old brings his older sister his cuddly toy when she's lying on the bed crying. However, adults have mostly lost sight of these compassionate gestures because, as the research of developmental psychologist Jutta Kienbaum, for example, in particular has shown, parents and educators do not encourage children enough to show these compassionate skills. On the contrary, it is not uncommon for children to learn at home and in kindergarten that prosocial skills such as comforting and helping are reserved for adult caregivers and should be taken over by them. A child who remains motionless, even though his playmate has just hurt himself or herself and is crying in front of his eyes, has already internalized that his compassion and help are not wanted or needed. It seems inevitable that children are already learning to delegate prosocial or helpful behavior in emergency situations, especially professional helpers. Conclusion. Our focus is therefore on the emotional dimension of learning, knowing full well that prosociality always have an emotional foundation. Emotional psychology, according to the Augsburg researchers Dieter Uhlich and Jutta Kienbaum, has shown that the promotion of prosocial behavior, caring for others, comforting, helping, and so on, has its roots in emotional development. So in contrast, promoting compassionate skills can strengthen a willingness to take responsibility and pro-social behavior. I have come to the conclusion that promoting compassion is not only theologically motivated, but also necessary for peace education. Then, having established this understanding of compassion, we dare to take the leap to transformative learning. So let's go the next step to show you an example, how compassion promotes peace education concretely. Compassion promotes peace-building skills. Peace education is an essential component of education for sustainable development. For a peaceful, just, and sustainable world can only be created through education. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015, provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and in the future. At its heart are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which represent an urgent call to action for all countries, industrialized and developing alike, within a global partnership. They recognize that eradicating poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education and reduce inequalities, while also combating climate change and helping to protect our oceans and forests. The precursor to all this seems to be the principle of globally understood compassion, which addresses the basic existential conditions for well-being of the world around us. The basis for this is the theme of peace, explicitly mentioned in SDG 16, where it's called Promote Peaceful and Inclusive Societies for Sustainable Development, provide access to justice for all, build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. However, peace can also be implicitly interpreted as a cross-cutting goal in the other SDGs, of course. Peace is not only a goal, but also the basis for many other SDGs. For example, SDG 1, no poverty. War exacerbates poverty, promoting peace is combating poverty. Or SDG 4, that is very important for us, it's quality education. The inherent connection between education and peace building. Or SDG 5, gender equality. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable in conflict, so gender equality is a high-level goal. Or SDG 13, climate action. The climate crisis can exacerbate conflicts over resources, for example. Or SDG 17, promoting peace requires international cooperation. Together, peace is a goal in itself, SDG 16, but it is also a prerequisite for achieving all other SDGs. Sustainability and peace are mutually dependent. Without peace, there can be no development, and without development, there can be no peace. So far, so good. However, it all still sounds very abstract and general, and that is precisely the problem. There is systematic criticism of the implementation of sustainability goals that are considered too complex and too general. Based on our theologically grounded understanding of compassion, I would therefore like to outline the following profiles. First, the engine of the transformative learning cannot succeed without taking into account the emotional dimension of learning. I already mentioned that. While educational concepts of education for sustainable development, I said ESDs, are usually based on competence models that focus primarily on cognitive dimensions, such as orientation knowledge, the principle of compassion aims at a balanced perspective by also giving strong weight to the emotional dimension of learning. Why is that so important in terms of transforming learning processes? It's about the famous mind-behavior gap, the connection between feeling, thinking, and acting. As we know from the field of environmental ethics, increased knowledge of ecological interrelationships does not lead to changed behavior that is beneficial to the environment. Is it the case that ethical judgment and ethical action remain two different things? Indeed, must remain so if the emotional basis of ethical decision-making processes is ignored? We must ask ourselves this question from an educational perspective. For religious education, this means that in the context of ethical educational processes, it is of course important to be able to argue fundamentally from a theological perspective and to identify ethical criteria. However, this puts us primarily on a cognitive level and means that we have only touched on the subject as such in passing. After all, the claim to Christian-based education, for example, would fall far short of its goals if education as self-education were not seriously subject-oriented. But if we focus on the human being as a subject, we cannot do so without considering their feelings. Subject orientation cannot therefore succeed without reflection on the emotional dimension of being human, especially in a theological-based ethic. For, as systematic theologian Helga Kuhlmann writes, quote, "If religion were not based on emotion, it would not exist at all," quote end. Religion is not only a matter of knowledge, interpretation and reflection, but also of emotion. In this respect, I believe it is time to take a closer look at the much vaunted three-dimensionality of ethical education as an intertwining of emotional, cognitive and pragmatic elements, and to reflect on desideratum. With the so-called emotional turn, today's neurosciences reviewed the one-sidedness of a dominance of rationality. The emotional turn is closely linked to the somatic turn. Contemporary practical theology also implies a theological view of humanity that not only postulates the connection between body and soul, but also concretizes it, incorporates a theology of feeling, and differentiates an emotion-oriented religious education. That is quite new in Germany. I think since 10 or 20 years we are working on that topic. In my opinion, the gaping chasm of the so-called mind-behavior gap can only be closed by attaching greater importance to these dimensions. I find the motto, differentiate but not separate, to be a helpful key. Differentiate but don't separate. We must come to emphasize the connections more strongly again without, of course, ignoring the differences. Identity with lasting difference. The perspective of compassion offers a helpful perspective here, which I can understand as a complementary principle in the sense of both and. This brings me to the second point, the spiritual dimension, which has tended to be neglected in previous discourses of sustainability education, was of particular interest in the 2024 Nuremberg Forum Conference. So the second point is the engine of transformative learning cannot succeed without incorporating the spiritual dimension of learning. And the conference is that Nuremberg Forum. The book will be published, I think in two months it will be published in English. It was an international conference. With the buzzword sustainability or education for sustainable development, the ecological transformation process aims to consider three dimensions in a context-related way: ecology, preservation of ecosystems; economy, a functioning system for creating prosperity; and the third, social justice. However, when focusing on these three pillars, a motivating connection is often neglected. For example, no reference is made to underlying values, nor are the topics of religiosity or spirituality, which reflect an implicit value orientation and connection with sustainability goals, addressed. As is so often the case, the relevance of religious education is marginalized here too. The Nuremberg Forum therefore rightly emphasizes the need to focus more on the spiritual dimensions of ESD. Spirituality in the religious sense is an external point of reference, a relationship with God or transcendent authority. For example, when I emphasized in my faith that I did not create myself, but owe my existence to a creative force, then relationality becomes the basis of sociality. Spirituality can thus highlight the connection between personal, social, and political transformation. In the following, I would like to focus on the concept of connectedness, with the principle of compassion as it relates to God, fellow human beings, and the environment, which I believe should be at the heart of sustainable education. So the third point, the engine of transformative learning cannot succeed without incorporating the dimension of a sense of belonging, of togetherness, a sense of unity in acting. Today's young generation in the European context is growing up accompanied by fears, as was the case for other generations in the past, but in my opinion, the clarity and complexity of the crisis have intensified. European youth studies show high levels of fear of war, while at the same time there is growing ecological grief about the continuing loss of biodiversity. The consequences of climate change will be immense for present and future generations. It is the most fundamental task of theology to encourage hope, I think. In discussing theological foundations, we spoke of a God of compassion. Trusting in the gospel as the good news of a merciful God can provide a counterpoint to so much bad news. We cannot save this world. It is an exaggerated expectation that humanity can fix everything, especially since we ourselves have caused such damage. It would be hubris that would lead to new hopelessness in the face of the chaos of the Anthropocene. But what does that mean? It means that, and it is immensely important for me to emphasize in view of the religious fantasies and lack of imagination that are circulating, in concrete terms, gift and task are interdependent. The gift of a compassionate God also sensitizes our compassion. We cannot do it alone, and that is precisely why we can deal with guilt. Only confessioning guilt can bring liberation and lead to new encouragement, I think. However, this requires an attitude of humility. The aspect of rationality must be emphasized. From a Protestant perspective, I see humility, the confession of guilt, and the promise of grace as the connecting link between creation theology and justification theology. Only on this basis can reconciliation take place between me and other people, between me and my environment, and in co-creation. Other religions also emphasize this connection. For example, a Buddhist perspective, Joanna Macy writes from a Buddhist perspective, quote, "When we express and share our feelings, we realize that we are not isolated. I have realized that our pain about the state of the world and our love for the world are inextricably linked. They are just two sides of the same coin." Quote end. But that means we are called to take responsibility, trusting that we cannot fall deeper than into God's hands. It is important that we take action as best we can, each and every one of us in our own place. Conclusion: transformative learning as an excessive demand. Compassion in the age of global media networking automatically carries with it the risk of being too much to handle. Young people react with distance and repression for reasons of self-protection and perhaps also compassion. Feelings of constant negative news and powerless I can feel with my students. From my view of pastoral counseling, I like to recommend a book which young people love, as I know from my own children. It's a book about resilience. It's not in a special religious perspective, but it's related to, I think. And there are two slides I think I want to share with you because they are with humor, and I think they are nice. The first one is, as you can see, to be connected to a higher thing of yourself, to have an idea, devote yourself to something greater than yourself, to have an imagination of what you like to do, and that can encourage you to be engaged. Second idea, sorry. Love chiefly honors the small things. That is a quote from a Protestant theologian. Learn to meditate and the art of mindfulness, to be impressed and yes, to have a look with enthusiasm to the creation. Appreciation of the everyday, of small and local commitment. I can decide to set different priorities in my own context. And to discover the mysterious. There is a treasure, my treasure. Where can I find my treasure? This can be a religious treasure, I think. No, sorry. Yes. And now for the last and most important point for me, I want to explain interreligious education for sustainable development, the potential of interface cooperation, interconnectedness, the potential of interface networks for sustainable educational initiatives lies both in their influence on religious communities themselves and in their function as a reference point for interface joint initiatives. I want to bring this as an example, the Interface Rainforest Initiative. And here you can see there are already numerous internationally active interface networks that focus their efforts on sustainable development goals, such as Religions for Peace International, the International Partnership on Religious Sustainable Development called PART, or Greenface International Interface Center for Sustainable Development, among others. Interestingly, these interface initiatives, which have tended to be isolated and receive little public attention, are currently growing rapidly in the international context, as I can see. Also, no empirically verifiable data is available on this yet. This phenomenon shows the increasing relevance of interface engagement with the aim of sustainability education, climate protection, and the promotion of climate justice. This is a source of hope, I think. The urgent task is to highlight the expertise of religious communities in environmental and climate protection on the basis of their theological foundations and to make them visible in the sustainability discourse, especially with regard to interface cooperation in a transnational context. Given the urgency of the situation and the need to focus on the areas of climate crisis and also climate justice, sustainability goals must be viewed in the complex context today. Each religious community must be considered here in the context of its intentional description of religious education. However, particular synergy effects can be expected in interface cooperation on environmental ethics education concepts. In short, the goal of joint learning is to motivate, encourage, correct, and thus learn from each other in a constructive and critical manner. Through our Erasmus project, we are aiming to take precisely this approach. Facing global challenges, environmental and peace education, interreligious cooperation for religious teacher training. It is running for 3 years. The common goal here is the implementation of joint environmental ethical measures in the context of higher education, which focuses in particular on the training and continuing education of teachers. Religion-related teacher training is therefore chosen as a practice-oriented reference field of higher education to enable future multipliers to promote sustainable awareness in the sense of a religion-sensitive way of responsibility, and that in the school educational context of all grades and school types. The interdependence of climate change, climate resilience, and climate justice therefore plays a major role as environmental ethics promotion at the level of awareness and action should be accompanied by formal education to establish coping structures for already existing and growing climate-related damage, and at the same time by sensitization to social structures of disadvantage such as inclusion and migration. In this respect, this project also aims at efficiency with respect to religious and political decision makers, which ultimately serves trans-religious and transnational peacekeeping. This is particularly important since with growing climate-related damage, an enormous increase in conflicts, or dwindling resources, as well as massive migration movements can be expected. Usually, you can see that Erasmus programs are only related to European countries, but not in our case. A networking of the partner organizations from Germany, Austria, Spain, and Albania has been chosen in such a way that in the European context, religious profiles, especially Christian, Islamic, and Buddhist movements, are linked with each other in regionally different contexts. But using the example of water, a topic that is crucial for our future, the European perspective, especially with regard to climate justice, is not considered without the global context. With the Islamic Partner University in Malaysia, our Eurocentric perspective is broadened, and I'm very happy and very thankful for this enrichment by the cooperation with our Malaysian partners. Thank you so much. What makes our project innovative? The fact that the potential of sustainable education on the horizon of interreligious cooperation has so far been underdeveloped and insufficiently established in the European context in research, teaching, and knowledge transfer. Due to the urgency of the dramatically progressing climate crisis, the emphasis is especially on teacher training to bring timely and effective educational impulses into practical school efforts. In this context, the cooperative synergy in joint cross-religious projects is to be seen as particularly innovative, since inclusive educational goals in the sense of religious diversity, shaping social coexistence are combined with environmental ethical intentions that affect everyone equally, regardless of religious and cultural imprints. Especially in the interreligious...
Prof, sorry to interfere.
Yes.
You have another 2 minutes.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, I wanted to conclude with an example, with an experience.
Okay. I'll give you another 2 or 3 minutes extra.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. I come to the end, and I want to share with you a personal experience to illustrate the importance of compassion and peace building. The key lies, I think, in shift in perspective, which prevents hasty judgment and thus opens us new constructive ways, common ways. And so I want to share with you my personal experience in the rainforest of Borneo. Last summer, I was traveling as a European through the Malay part of Borneo. My expectations are clear from the outset. Here in a jungle camp, I will gather fascinating impressions of the rainforest that has existed for millennia and remains intact, whilst at the same time witnessing how vast swathes of country have been and continue to be deforested to make way for palm oil plantations. But then happened a very interesting impulse for me and my thoughts. In conversation with a local scientist, I learned that the felling of valuable tropical timbers, like ulin, teak, rattan, and other precious woods, began as early as the colonial era, 1850 till 1940. The first plantations for pepper, rubber, tobacco, and coffee were established to meet European demand. Large-scale industrial deforestation of Borneo's forests began in the 1970s with the tropical timber boom in the US, Europe, and Japan. Since the 1980s, the large-scale palm industry has been aggressively expansive. Nowadays, on a bus journey through the country, one sees vast monotonous palm oil plantations, the rainforest, whose biodiversity includes a multitude of monkey species, as well as the critically endangered orangutans, Asian elephants, and a fascinating bird life, which I had just marveled at in the tourist jungle camp. Has been more than half cleared and also burned. When I start talking about deforestation, the Malaysian scientists ask me in return what we in Germany have actually done with our forests. Why have your forests largely disappeared, he asked. I never thought about that question, and here you can see that is my home. Were your ecological valuable mixed forest not clearly to make way for agriculture that operates on a profit-driven basis across vast areas using the largest possible machinery? Why aren't there even hedgerows left as ecologically refuges for hares, mice, and hedgehogs? Why do you poison your vast fields with so-called plant protection products to such an extent that insect decline has progressed so massively? And shouldn't the people of Borneo also be allowed to have legitimate interest in economic and social development? I find myself deep in thought. Of course, it's not that simple when it comes to criticizing palm oil, especially given the historical background. Shouldn't I, as a European, be the one to fall silent and reflect on our wealth at the expense of less industrialized countries, a wealth that owes much, not least to colonial exploitation? And I think this example illustrates the contradictions that can arise in the specific context of international encounters. Feelings of humility in the face of potential for action become apparent and are accompanied by feeling of helplessness. What can environmental education mean in terms of international responsibility? How can a constructive dialogue succeed that takes into account the respective national context, but also the culturally and religiously shaped mentalities? So it was I want to shorten my last words, but it was very impressive for me to have this transnational meeting of our Erasmus project in Malaysia, and it opened really my eyes um, to see how we can work together. And connectedness is for me the key word of a spirituality, with the connectedness with nature, the environment, and also our fellow human beings. In this sense, interreligious education for sustainable development represents a strong connecting interest among religions that has been sufficiently recognized until now. I believe religions have immense potential to raise awareness and promote transformative learning. It is encouraging that despite our different faith traditions, we can share common goals. We do not have to believe together, but we feel together, we take action together. When a specific we interest arises, the motivating power of collective intentionality should not be underestimated. We should therefore urgently become aware of this great opportunity for connection and promote it, because we all know time is running out. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, the Prof. Elizabeth. That was a very insightful presentation. We are very honored to listen to your presentation today. So just very briefly before we open for question and answer, when I look at how you integrated the concept of integration, I mean the compassion with education, that was very excellently put forward. As well as when I look at the role of religion, how does religion help to promote compassion as well as to feel the reality the way it is. And the most important thing that you are looking at it from different perspectives. When you said that, how can we change the perspective when we are dealing with each other without compromising what we have? So that will make us better who we are. And how can we contribute to the betterment of society, not only in our context, but it should be from the global perspective. And when we look at, you raised many questions at the beginning. It was very wonderful said when you look at the poems and the narrative perspective that you made use of it. That was very insightful, and I believe that that has impressed the audience. And this is, and we hope that this will make people to think differently, not looking at it from their own perspective, but they have to go out from the box. And this is the way that how you use this approach. And another thing that you mentioned here, cooperation, regardless of the differences that we have. And that is how interreligious dialogue plays a very important role when we cooperate with different partners, regardless of our differences. And another important thing that you mentioned in your talk, Prof. Elizabeth, it is how can we combine or balance or be moderate when you look at the feelings, thoughts, and the actions. And this is how compassion can easily be practiced when we look at others the way we want them to look at us. So this will help us not to neglect our responsibility, especially when I look at the contemporary trend dealing with environment. And we are facing currently many if I can say, uh, aspects or trends, how they look at the environment. And this is disturbing not only one particular person, not only one particular religious community, but this is disturbing every one of us, regardless of our religious consciousness. And another very important thing that I would like to share before we open for the questions, it is the theological aspect that you mentioned here. This is very fundamental. And we as religious people believe that this is the heart that you can see in every religion that will move not only the members of that particular religious community, but this will go beyond the boundaries that are set by the teachings of every religion. And this is how you look at it, the interfaith initiatives that have taken place in Europe as well as broader. And you presented to us here the very good example that you are leading the project on Erasmus Plus that is dealing with 5 different universities. And this is not only covering the European aspect, but it has gone beyond to the Southeast Asia, where the Islamic University is contributing greatly. So we are very thankful to you, Prof. Elizabeth, for sharing with us this wonderful and insightful talk. And now we open for question and answers. So any one of you, just please go straight forward, make it very brief. Even if you have a comment, you can comment, make it very brief, and we have like another, if I said 22 minutes to finish. I said 20 minutes for the question and answers. Please, any one of you is welcome. Raise
Hi
your
there.
hand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please.
Hi
Yeah.
there. Assalamualaikum and good evening to everyone. Good
Alaikum
evening
salam.
to Professor Elizabeth. Okay, I have a question I would like to ask to you.
Sister Nisa, can you introduce yourself? Then you can ask the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Nunisa Soleha, and I am a PhD student in our department, which is the Usuluddin and Comparative Religion, this is my first semester. Okay. I have a question to our beloved Professor Elizabeth. How do we reset the youth who are less feelings nowadays? Because as I am myself, I am facing two phases, which is I am growing up in a maybe a less digital environment, but today the youth, they are growing up in a digital based environment, which is everything is related to cell phones and AIs, and they are even more experts than us, which is the elder. And then how do we try to connect or reconnect with them, which is as you mentioned about the spiritual and also the emotional dimensions, which the people are now are less feelings. Even though I am thinking myself, am I less feelings right now? So how do we reconnect with them through shared values in an interreligious aspect? So this is the question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisa. Prof, please go. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear Noor, for your question. I think it's a very important question because digitalization is growing and growing, and especially the young people are touched so much. I have to say too much from that. Yes, from that digital impressions and yes, they're from the digital life they are living. Yes. It's a huge problem. I have not the solution of this global problem, but I think there are some ideas coming from the religious education process. Religious education in our context is also trying to force your how can I say it, your corporality, your senses, your feelings. There's a lot of methodology of mediation, of looking at the books, reading the books. In my context, in the Christian context, we also playing some text, some narrative stories from the Bible, and that is coming into roles, playing, come into action, and that is contradictory to the digital life. Yes, that is the real life. And we also try to go into the nature, to be fascinated from what we see, what we can see, to have a feeling, to smell it, to hear it, to see it, and to strengthen the senses, and also to strengthen the the sensitive way of religious education. I think that is one way we can yes come to a bit more balance to the digital life. Yes. On the other hand, you can see all the toxic consequences of the digital life. Yes, at the moment, KI, we live in a revolution of KI, and we can see we don't know what we can trust anymore. What I can see with the KI, is it true or not? I don't know. I don't know. Yes, and so people is very confused about that. What are the sources which I can trust? Who's trustful for me? So that is very important, I think, for religious education to ask, yes, where's the truth? Where's the truth, and what can I believe to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Elizabeth. You reminded us about the saying of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam related to the loss of Amana. And we are just, as you stated, we are indeed feeling it today. Yeah? When I look at the digitalized world, and especially the knowledge and the trust is lost, we are not having this kind of trust anymore because it is lost. And when you look at those who are in the front line, they don't represent what is expected by the community itself. So this is well said, you just mentioned. Thank you very much, Prof. Elizabeth.
Can I
Yes,
please have one
yes,
important thing, because
yes,
you asked for interreligious
yes,
education.
yes.
Yes, we see it as a king way of interreligious learning to come into encounter with people of other faiths, and that is also very important. Not to see it on the screen only. What is Islam? What is Christianity? That is not the truth. Yes, the truth is to come into friendship with people of other faiths, to see what they are believing, to come into dialogue, and that is a very important way of interreligious learning.
Yeah, thank you very much. This will benefit a lot of our students, that most of them, they are related to Usuluddin, comparative religion and philosophy. And we believe that this will help them how to transform this into actions. And not only they get the knowledge, but how to transform, like you mentioned, how do we look at others regardless of the differences that we have. And this requires compassion, what you mentioned here, how to balance. And we Muslims, we look at the concept of moderation. You have heard about this, Elizabeth, how a Muslim should be moderate when he's dealing with members of his community as well as members of other community. Okay, thank you. Now we are welcome others to ask any question or any comment, please. Okay, Dr. Ainul, yeah.
Assalamualaikum, everyone. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Elizabeth, for sharing a very insightful lecture or, ideas from Germany. I just want to go back to one of the points you made about the generation of fear, right? Among our youngsters, I think this is also related to what Nisa has mentioned just now. This digital overload generation, FOMO and FOBO, fear of missing out, fear of better options, right? So perhaps you can share with us, maybe from your context in Germany, from your perspective as a Protestant, what are some of the ideas how we can turn this fear of missing out to a positive kind of fear? Fearing God, for example, or fearing, the calamity that's happening around us, the climate change and all that, because I think this is what's missing among our present or younger generation. They fear about a lot of things, but sometimes the wrong things, you know. I think this is a global issue, but perhaps you can share with us some of the things that Germany is doing, maybe from the interreligious perspective, from the classroom or the lessons in school, and perhaps from the community activities outside classroom. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you so much for your very important question. I think that's the main question for me because in my lectures I'm discussing with my students about some actual points of policy and something like that. And I see they are not very well informed. And when I ask them, why are you not so informed? Yes, they are not so interested because it's always negative. It's always negative and depressing. And they don't want to hear any more about wars, conflicts, and climate crisis and so on. And that is very dangerous, I think, to go back to your privacy and to live on your own, wonderful, but not to have this view on the public society, on the political developments. Yes, so I ask by myself, what can we do? They feel hopelessness. They feel they have ecological grief. Yes, they have. It's also empirical. We have also empirical studies of the youth people. They have ecological grief. They are sad about the loss of biodiversity, for example, and they feel helpless and they say, yes, we cannot do anything. We are so alone. Yes, and even loneliness is a huge problem for young people, as they feel alone. And so I think, yes, our international and interreligious project is a point to encourage them. We don't have to feel alone because, for example, religious actors are working together. There are huge interface networks for ecological projects. I showed in my slides for one example for the Interface Rainforest Initiative, which is very successful. You have to show such positive examples. Yes, there are not only, I can see at the moment every religion is looking for strengthening the ecological view of their theological backgrounds. Yes, that is a very important point. Yes, and the other point is we can work together, we can act together. And that is very important for young people to see, yes, there are powers and they can do something together. They are willing to do something together. And I think that is a point to encourage young people. I hope so. That is my idea. Yes.
We hope for the best. Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, others, we are welcoming others to ask questions or any comment. This is a great opportunity to have such professor with us. And it is like we are not traveling to Germany, but we brought Germany to Malaysia. And this is opportunity for young people like you. And you look at the future, we don't know how it will be tomorrow. We are just talking about what we see today. So that is a platform to prepare you. Yeah, please, you say anything, you know. So all of us are learning here in this platform.
Perhaps I can ask something.
That
Yes,
is good. Yeah, please. Yeah.
very interested because I have the European perspective, yes, and we see at the moment for the young people, they are the fear of wars is increasing, and the fear of a climate crisis is decreasing. Yes, and that is our special European context because we have already war in Europe because of the Ukrainian conflict, the Russian war against the Ukrainians, and also the Iran war and a lot of wars. And young people are very afraid of these wars. And the topic of climate crisis then goes to the background. And I'm interested to hear from your perspective what is about your young generation. What do you think? Is this also, like I mentioned, for the European context, a feeling of fear and powerlessness, or what do you think? What is your...
Yeah, this is a very good question. Yeah, we have young generation here. Yeah, please, we are waiting anyone of representing our context in Malaysia. Yeah, please.
Some of our brothers are also here, right, Dr. Fatime?
Yes. I mean, anyone. Prophet Isabel would like to listen from the young generation because that is our concern, how to cope up with this situation.
Even our MC, Umaira or Aisha or Nisa also can respond.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to respond.
Yeah, please.
Thank you to Dr. Fatmi and Dr. Ainul, and thank you also to our Professor Elizabeth. Okay, for me, I always face this kind of situation, which is the powerlessness and also the fearness, which I always feel anxious about my journey, and particularly this is my first PhD journey. Okay, so when I face this kind of situation, the first thing first, I will run to my mother, and then I will tell her everything about my feelings, and then she will advise me. But on some situations, I don't want to share some of sadness to her. And most important thing, I will perform my prayer, and then I will feel um, the good vibe after my prayer. This is which is we even the youth generation, we take for granted because we are growing up in it and even born in our religion. And then when I arrive at this kind of stage, which is in my mid 30s, I feel what I have taken for granted. My creator give me the feelings. The feelings will come, but it comes stage by stage. So I think everyone will face the same phases, but maybe in a different journey. So that's how I cope with this situation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Noor. Very, very interesting. I can understand it very good. Yes. I think faith can be a huge help in these situations. Yes, and the belief that we cannot fall deeper than in God's hands, that is really encouraging and helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That is, Elizabeth, like you mentioned, even in your context, when you look at the role of religion, and especially the faith that is the theological perspective, this will help the young generation how to make things better and to differentiate themselves from others. When we look at the young Christians and we look at the young Muslims or young Jews who follow and practice religion correctly, I think this will help to not only improve our situation from religious perspective, community, but interreligious aspect. And how can we help humanity is not only helping our own self, but we would like to help humanity at large. And as you mentioned, environment, other spaces that are created by God, God consciousness is very important. So if we instill this in the young generation, and they can cope, this will help them to cope easily, regardless of the consequences that they go through. But yet the fear is there, the test is there. God is testing us. That is how we believe, whether we like it or not. But how to stabilize, like you mentioned, the compassion plays a very important role. Sharing and caring. When you talk about sharing and caring, what God has given to us, how can we share with others? And when you look at Malaysia context, it is very far from the troubles, but there are other consequences that they face. It is like the AI technology, the intellectual discourse, influence, impact that comes through from different ways. So that is a worry as well. We don't take, like Nisa mentioned, yes, the young generation take it for granted because the parents are working very hard. Now, when responsibility comes under their shoulders, then they are awakened from that situation. This is very good. I believe that what Prophet Isabel shared with us will help us to awaken ourselves and to look at the reality the way it is, not the way we want it to be. You want many things, but it's very difficult. But when you look at the way it is, this will train us how to cope up with these situations.
I think Sister
Okay, yeah, please, yeah, Humaira, please, yeah, please, Humaira.
Humaira.
Yeah, we have another 2 minutes, and okay, that is the
All right.
last, and
All right.
we stop.
Keep it short. All right. So, from my perspective, with everything going on at the moment as early 20s myself, I think the most important thing at the moment when we're facing with these challenges, especially when we feel so helpless and everything feels falling apart, as it's been mentioned before, religion as a cushion, as a grounding in these trying times. Other than religion, well, it's also rooted in religion that we are encouraged to gain more knowledge. So other than relying on God and His mercy and everything else to ground us spiritually in this world, facing all these challenges, we also have to equip ourselves with the knowledge, and we can get the knowledge from anywhere. We're in a very good time where everything is accessible on the internet, so we can gain knowledge, any kind of knowledge through here. So equipment of knowledge and paired with spiritual grounding, I think can really help the current generation, inshallah.
Yeah, mashallah.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well,
Yes, please,
yes, you
Prof. Yeah, Prof.
Yes, thank you so much. You are completely right. I think we have a lot of chances today. Yes, digitality is not the evil. Yes, we can use it if we are smart enough. And sorry, I didn't say AI. I said KI. That's German. Sorry about that. But I did. I hope you understand it. Yes, and also KI is very useful, but you have to use it very smart, and you have to combine it with your, I think, also with your spiritual dimensions of living. Yes, and then it is useful, and we can take the chances. Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Elizabeth. This the time is for everything that we start. There is a beginning, there is an end. So
Yes.
for our program today, we are coming up to the end. On behalf of our department, would like to thank you very much, Prof. Elizabeth, as well as on behalf of our Kulia of Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Kulia of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, as well as on behalf of our university, would like to thank and appreciate your contribution in providing this insightful knowledge and experience where we believe that our young generation will benefit a lot indeed. So with that, I would like as well to extend our thanks to all the participants and especially our committee who was working very hard. When I look at the UDCY community, we gave this task to them. We are very thankful to them. I would like to mention the chairman, that is Sister Aisha. We have Sister Umaira. We have Sister Arina as well, that they helped a lot to make this program the way we have it today. So I would like to thank, but before we leave, so Sister Umaira, can you, we'd like to have a photo together.
All right, sure. So everyone can open their cameras wherever they can.
Sister Umaira, before you leave, because I just saw that you shared the link here. Any one of you, before we leave, please, can you you click on the Google, this is the feedback. So I'd like to get your feedbacks about our program. Please, before you leave, make sure that you fill this form. Okay, Sister Umaira.
Okay, so just me a minute. If anyone would like to open their camera, I encourage you all to do so. Let me try to change this layout. Or maybe we can ask maybe Sister Aisha to help with the photo, because I am having a bit of trouble with the layout to see everybody. So many people are opening their cameras.
Okay, so for 1 minute, we give time for opening your camera to get ready. Okay.
I think Aisha is frozen there, Dr. Fatma.
Okay.
Aisha can. Aisha.
Just started to rain here.
Yeah, it's very heavy rain.
Maybe the connection. Humaira, can you help?
I'm trying to find a way to get everyone on screen at the moment.
You can take it by section, Humaira. The first
By
section.
section as well. All right.
Yeah, just go up to the gallery. Yeah.
Gallery. I cannot seem to find it. It's pretty. Okay, wait. I am so sorry for this. I am so sorry.
Assalamualaikum. I apologize. I am Aisha. I apologize. My internet was cut off. Yeah. But I already managed to take the picture.
Okay, great.
Then okay, let us close. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Elizabeth, and all of
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
welcome.
you,
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
welcome.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.